I was raised in the lovely city of Chicago, Illinois. Chicago people. Hey. I was raised with La Casa Norte, and La Casa Norte is an organization that works with youth and families confronting homelessness. The organization works primarily on housing, but also has a thriving food initiatives program that I was a part of. So I'm here to share a little bit about the work in food initiatives, specifically linking to different community gardens and urban farms in the city of Chicago. And I'm going to use throughout this presentation the term EFP, and that's just an abbreviation for Emergency Food Provider. And La Casa Norte is an emergency food provider. So here's the mission if you want to know a little bit more about the organization. On the left-hand side, that's the organization's headquarters in the Humboldt Park neighborhood on the city's northwest side. On the right-hand side, you will see this beautiful architectural plan for this community center and housing development project that the organization wants to expand to, and is really working, fundraising really hard to become that in a few years. So that's the goal right now. And in this push for expansion, there's also a push to expand food initiatives. So the organization really wants to know, what do we do next with regards to food, and what sustainable things can we do next with regard to food. So one of the things that La Casa Norte is envisioning is more partnerships with local gardens and farms in the city of Chicago. So here I have a picture of a garden and a picture of a farm. Can anyone tell which is which in the city of Chicago?
The left is the farm. No.
Okay, anyone else?
The right is the farm.
Okay. These are the things that I wanted to get across with these two pictures is that the distinct isn't very clear cut. So you might think like, oh, that looks like a garden, that looks like a farm, but actually that's a garden, that's a farm. So according to the city of Chicago's, let me see, Department of Housing and Economic Development, a garden is usually owned by a public entity, so it could be like La Casa Norte if we own land and we wanted to have individual plots for folks. That would be a more traditional definition of a community garden. It's not always that clear cut, let me underscore that. And on the right you see an image of an urban farm in the city's Southside Englewood neighborhood. And urban farms usually tend to have a model that's more production-based, more focused on creating temporary or part-time jobs for folks, many times for folks with barriers to employment that can include previous incarceration record or other factors that hinder employment. So I'm going to go a little bit into my actual research and the in-depth research that I did. I conducted ethnographic research with 6 different community gardens and 6 urban farms in the city of Chicago, and I interviewed different leaders about the potential for partnerships with an EFP and taking in mind our limitations. So we work primarily with youth who are confronting homelessness, so we really wanted to partner with organizations that were sort of youth-friendly, were pumped about working with youth. And also, as an EFP, we rely heavily on donations, so we snuck in that donations question, of course, because we want to know if they're going to donate to us, or what other sustainable ways. So if donations aren't a possibility, can we link our clients to your farm for potential jobs? So more sustainable ways for partnerships as well, not just donations. So with community gardens, primarily all of them, if not all of them, were volunteer-led. There's a strong donation potential for donating, even though, like I mentioned, a lot of the plots are for individual consumption. Many folks were interested in donating to organizations and already did do that work. However, we saw youth involvement as a hindrance because since many gardens are volunteer-led, there isn't really an opportunity for a job or for a stipend with that participation. So with our youth that are many times dealing with financial insecurities, we really want to respect and honor their time and give them a stipend for their work. So I made different recommendations to La Casa Norte. Here, this is just a few. Because of the volunteer-led organization of many gardens, I think that developing a clear volunteer coordination schedule would be really incumbent upon La Casa Norte or the EFP to be better linked. The last recommendation I'll talk about for this section was really communicating client feedback about the produce that we get donated. So some produce was donated and it was well received, and some produce clients didn't know necessarily how to prepare those greens or that eggplant. So really communicating that feedback, because gardening leaders have the power of deciding which crops to grow every season. Urban ag, so again, I did research with 6 different urban farms in the city of Chicago. Like I mentioned, there's a really strong emphasis on labor and creating jobs in the local economy. There isn't necessarily the strongest focus on donations. That's not their primary model, but many express interest in donating in the future. And they offer either paid or stipend programs or some kind of educational certificate for participation. So one of the recommendations that I made to La Casa Norte was developing a clear referral system where clients can be referred to different programs in the city, and also taking up farms on their word. So they said that they would be really interested in donations, so being really proactive about seeking those different donations. And also seizing the educational opportunities that come with farms. Many farms have a really strong educational component, especially through Windy City Harvest and the Chicago Botanic Gardens, really developing that new generation of urban farmers. So to tie this all back to the beginning, like I mentioned, La Casa Norte is expanding. Here are two lovely images. On the top, you'll see an image for a teaching kitchen that La Casa Norte foresees as a space to learn about cooking, but also respect and honor the wisdom that a lot of folks already have with regard to cooking, so for it to be a collaborative space. And also a pantry where folks can choose the produce or the different meals that they want to take home. And wouldn't it be great if it was produce from a local garden or a local farm? And the same for the teaching kitchen. Wouldn't it be great if it was produce right there from the city of Chicago? So that's what La Casa Norte really envisions. And on the last note, I just really want to underscore the importance of comprehensive food programming at La Casa Norte. When I tell people I'm doing work on linking EFPs to urban ag, they're like, well, that's kind of ambitious, that's kind of too much, but La Casa Norte and other EFPs should think of sustainable ways and sustainable partnerships. So like I said, you might not get that donation right now, but you can link your client to a job, and that can really spur a lot. So I had a great time at La Casa Norte, and thank you very much.